Now we're going to go and continue with the factors. Okay, so how does the organism, soil organism, affected by the soil parameters? Now there are many. Now before I continue, I just want to orientate you first. Now earlier we've gone through with a lot of organisms from large to small as bacteria, as large as the mammals. Now in the following slides, we're going to discuss in general, okay? We're going to discuss in general what are the factors that affects these organisms, not just specifically bacteria. It could be all sorts of organisms. And these are the general factors that can influence their growth, okay? Now, I'm sure you've learned biology before. So there are a few factors that you already know affects the growth of organisms such as temperature, pH, these also have a lot to do with other things like how happy they are in the soil. Like if you, for example, if these guys are locked in their soil, like during PKP, you won't be happy if you don't have enough food, isn't it? So if there is enough food, if there's enough air, and if there's enough moisture, usually the soil organism will be very happy locked inside the soil. And that's the point, you see. So here, where is the nutrient? It's here, the organic matter, the nutrient, the oxygen is from the air. Because organisms, just like human, they also needs food and they need to respirate. They need air, they need food, they need moisture, just like us. Okay? By the way, there are other factors that you probably won't be able to connect, but they do, okay, they do. Because some human activities will going to affect the population of this soil organism. I'm talking about agricultural practice, and there are several. Okay? There are several examples how agricultural practice can increase or decrease the population or the activity of this soil organism. And of course, among these soil organisms also they compete. Because what not? They compete from the same source of nutrient from here, organic matter. So of course, these also may be a factor. So I'm going to start with pH. I think this one don't need too much of introduction because there are a certain organism that lives happily inside a certain pH. Like for example, if you look at the acidic pH, actually fungus can live much more better. They thrive. Fungus thrive and lives better in acidic condition compared to bacteria. But of course, you can say that majority organism, bacteria organism, they are happy at pH 7 because at this pH they are neither too acidic, neither too alkaline. So not much of irritation on their skin, and not much of effects to the availability of the nutrient. So usually when there's a change of pH, usually the large organism will first to suffer because these are the ones that actually moves a lot and then are more exposed to the changes of pH, and followed by the smaller organism like the microscopic nematodes and also bacteria. But in this case I can say to you that for whatever the changes in terms of moisture and pH, nematodes actually can last much more longer than bacteria. They are more resistant. Nematodes can live much more longer in the soil compared to bacteria. Bacteria is very sensitive to the change of pH actually. Okay, now what you can see right here is a curve, okay? The curve of that represent fungal over bacterial growth ratio as a result of changes of pH. So the x-axis is a pH. So from left to right is the increase of pH, and then the y-axis represent how much of fungus that you have. So if you get a higher value in the y-axis, that means you have more fungus. Now you can see right there, fungus is the highest at low pH. Like I said to you just now, fungus likes to live in acidic condition. However, when the pH change to alkaline, you will see more of bacteria. Either bacteria thrive in alkaline condition, or maybe the fungus cannot survive in alkaline condition. But either way, you can see how different pH change the population of fungus versus bacteria. Okay, now the next one is, I think I want to continue a little bit. Now, apart from this, there is an explanation on these things. because you must have learned about the inactivity of enzyme due to changes of pH. And coming back to this point, majority grows best at pH 7 because at pH 7, at this pH is said to be having no denaturation of enzyme. However, if the pH becomes more alkaline or more acidic, the enzymes that living organism needs for their physiological process, they might suffer denaturation. And without enzyme, organism may die. Yeah. And that may also have something to do with this different population, different growth ratio as a result of the different pH ratio, pH value. Now, in terms of temperature, also very similar. And you know, the optimum temperature for any living organism, 37 degrees Celsius. Because after, if it's higher than 37 degrees Celsius, again, the protein, the enzyme may denature. And if they denature, of course, they cannot survive. However, bacteria is very strange. Bacteria, sometimes they can adapt to very extreme condition. Like for example, some of these bacteria called psychrophiles. Now, these bacteria can even survive at temperature minus 20 degrees Celsius until 20 degrees Celsius. So these are the bacteria that unfreeze themselves and still survive. But majority of the bacteria, if you froze it below 0 degrees, they actually don't die. They just become inactivated. So once they comes back to the optimum temperature, like the room temperature, 37 degrees Celsius, this bacteria or any bacteria will going to survive again. A majority of the bacteria is from mesophiles, so they can survive like at room temperature until 37 degrees Celsius. Beyond that, some of them may not survive, but there are a few bacteria that actually thrive. Thrive means not only they survive, they live even better. They live even better at high temperature. And we're talking about between 45 and 122 degrees Celsius. And I think I've seen one documentary that says that in the underground volcano, undersea volcano, scientists discovered that volcanoes where temperature can reach up to 900 degrees Celsius, there are bacteria. So I'm not kidding you. Some bacteria can even survive up to 900 degrees Celsius. Of course, like they have moisture, they have water. There must be something that they have done, evolve, that they can survive. And of course, they need water. Now, this moisture is for transportation or movement of nutrient within the organism's body, and also some of them may need it for photosynthesis. Nutrient. Obviously, nutrient is for building blocks, for energy. Okay? And most of the nutrients, surprisingly, they come from organic matter. Not surprisingly, I would say, not surprisingly, because most of these soil nutrients, they are recycled. Where? Organic matter. Now, this one is probably not too common for you. Agricultural practices. How does agriculture affect soil organism? Now, I'm going to bring you back like 50 years back. Now, 50 years back, where agriculture knowledge is not that common, most people actually, first thing that they do before they do agriculture is they chop down all the trees. Okay? They chop down all the trees, they clear all the land, then only they plant with all their crops. Monoculture, we call it. That's a bad idea, actually. Okay, that's number one. Okay, number two. What did you do after they chop down all the trees? They throw it away. I'm serious. They either throw it away or they convert it into firewood, which is the second bad thing, agricultural practice wise. Now, the third bad thing is uh, they actually were going to tile the soil. Like I told you just now, membaja. So they use all the kerbau lah. I think for 50 years back, you don't have machine guns. So kerbau behind it, tied with a big piece of something object, and then they just uh they just burrow through all along the soil. So what happened is the soil becomes exposed. So deeper soil regions become exposed. What happened after that is the insects, the earthworms becomes on the surface. And what happened? The birds comes down. The birds go and eat every single organism supposedly before that inside the soil. And then what happened? There's no more organism that can recycle nutrient. So most of the agricultural practices previously that is bad for the soil are That's what I said earlier. Okay? So that is why in this point is there's such a thing called good management practice. Now, in this good management practice, people will tend to return to organic farming. Now, when I say organic farming, that means the fertilizer. Okay, the fertilizer must comes from organic source. And in this case, when you say organic farming, you cannot use chemical fertilizer. Most of the fertilizer is from your compost of the plants. Okay, that's number one. And number two, to qualify to become an organic farmer, you cannot use pesticide. No chemical pesticide whatsoever. You can use biological pesticide, but not the chemical ones. Yeah? Because why? Now, either one of these two, well, I think no pesticide. Okay, pesticide, if you apply to soil, they kill everything. Not just they kill the pests that is harmful for the plants. They also kill the good organism. They also kill the good soil organism, including earthworms and also all the insects. So nowadays people don't use too much of the pesticide, supposedly, but still somebody use it. And then point number two, if tiling can harm the soil, nowadays people have a new following. They have like no-till, they call it no-till agriculture or farming. So these are the new trends, yeah? Avoid over-tillage and chemical pollution due to pesticide. Okay, now last point, competition. Now, like I told you just now, competition between these so-called organisms also may arise due to the because they all share from the same source of nutrient, from the same source of organic matter. So in this case, I would say the best example to explain competition will be between fungus and bacteria, because these two they cannot coexist usually. Well, if they coexist in different area. They cannot coexist. I mean, they cannot coexist at the same area, same turf, if you may. Yeah? Because why? Because fungus actually can produce antibiotics. Yeah, I'm not kidding you. The antibiotics that you're using today is actually derived from fungus. And vice versa. If you want to avoid mold growth, if your house have many dark spots due to dampness, you have a lot of fungus growth. The best way to avoid this one is you use sugar, ethanoic acid. The acetic acid or the ethanoic acid actually is produced by bacteria. So you see, bacteria has something to kill fungus, and fungus also produce something to kill bacteria. That's why they don't coexist, because they kill each other. But it's actually good that you have a balance between these two. Yeah. So moving on, soil organism and their distribution. I think this one will go really quick So where do you find this organism? I think the first question that I told you earlier during this lesson is, where do you rather live if you're a soil organism? And you answer it correctly. You live near the surface, because near the surface is where you get the source of nutrient, the source of moisture, and then that is where you also get sunlight. That is how you survive. So when you move deeper into the soil, you will not find too much of the organism, except if you can coexist with the plants, okay? Because sometimes when the plants have their root go deep inside the soil, like trees, for example, the area near the root area, the area near the roots of the trees usually will have quite a bit of bacteria, because these bacteria survive together with the trees, and their relation is best defined as symbiosis. Symbiosis means they mutually function each other. Okay, how does that happen? Well, let me check. Okay, no, there are no slides that describe about the symbiosis, but here what I can explain to you is that bacteria will be required near the roots, because as we learned earlier, bacteria converts and makes nutrients more available. So with the bacteria near the roots, they actually makes the nutrient more readily available to the trees, and trees can readily absorb it. They increase the absorption of nutrient. Trees becomes better. And then what? The bacteria actually will get something back from the trees. Surprisingly, how? Because once the trees becomes survive, they once they survive, and of course inside the tree they have photosynthesis, they generate energy, food source. These trees' roots, they were going to excrete a little bit of oligosaccharide. This oligosaccharide is like sugar. So the bacteria feeds on this sugar, and this is how they symbiosis. So I think these are the things that I can explain to you on this slide. Next thing, distribution and porosity, the size of aggregate. So as you can see right there, larger pores, larger aggregates gives you larger pores. That is where you can house bigger organisms. Small organisms, usually they live inside the small pores, the micropore of the soil particle. And that's where they protect themselves from all the larger predators, yeah, like the nematodes. But of course, if they are living inside the small pores, there are like some disadvantage. Like least available food and also pores tends to be water filled and poorly aerated. That is why, okay? That is why when you look at the last point, disadvantage, although this seems like a disadvantage for a certain bacteria, fungus, or whatever, but not for fungus, I'm sure, because fungus usually thrive in a waterlogged condition. This may be a disadvantage uh, for earthworms, for example, or maybe for insects because they need a lot of oxygen. When there are waters that fill all these pores, no oxygen can go in. However, let's not forget, inside the soil, you also have fungus. Yeah, fungus like this condition. The other one organism that likes water-filled and poorly aerated condition is nematodes. You remember earlier just now, nematodes can outlive bacteria? That is the reason. Because inside the micropore, you have moisture, and this moisture can stay long. They can stay longer. That is why nematodes can actually live, because usually nematodes also live inside moisture. That explains why. That explains why nematodes usually they are quite stable for any sudden changes of soil property. Okay, distribution of depth. I think I've explained to you earlier about this one, so I will skip. Next one, distribution on the zone, rhizosphere. Yeah, I think this one also similar to what I told you about the symbiosis between bacteria and also the root. This is a point. And of course, if soil organism is so important, you will need to maintain it. You need to keep a certain organism in the soil. Either artificially you put the organisms in. It's not surprising. Some farmers actually buy earthworms and put it inside the soil. But of course, you don't need to do it. All you need to do is you give them a certain condition, the good condition where this organism loves, and they will survive. You don't need to do anything. So these are the things that you can do, or farmers can do, to encourage the growth of organism. Number one, maintain optimum condition. Well, of course, this condition includes pH. Maintain suitable pH. Maintain a neutral pH. Temperature. Well, if the soil have enough moisture, temperature also can be optimum by itself. And sometimes you may inoculate with the desired symbiotic organism. And in this case, it could be bacteria, but most likely this so-called symbiotic organism will be earthworms. So far, I've heard like people inoculate earthworms in the soil. I think nothing else left. Lime the soil to the values above pH 6. So pH, as we learned earlier, it should be maintained near neutral. So if it's too acidic, you lime it. If it's too alkaline, you acidify them using sulfur. And then minimize soil sterilization. Now this one is caused by over usage of pesticide. Yeah, sterilization mostly caused by over usage of pesticide. Then number 5, maintain high organic matter. How do you maintain it? You see, if you have a tree, they fall down, they maintain the organic matter. If you want to add more organic matter, you just add more, dead leaves. These are the things that people overlook and usually they throw into dustbin. That is why, that is why most of the time, if you want to increase the organic matter, you don't have to go too far and buy it because biomass in Malaysia is like abundant. Look at palm oil industry. They have a lot. And then number 6 and number 7, avoid all contamination and avoid stress conditions. So these are like, I mean, very general things. But whatever that you can think of, as long as you give a suitable condition for the organism to thrive, for sure they were going to increase the organism activity. So the concluding remarks, what I can say about this soil biology is that after this, maybe on Thursday, we're going to continue with the soil organic matter and finish it, because soil organic matter is probably a larger part when we talk about biology. Now, what we learned today is the living things that you can see in the soil or you cannot see in the soil, and their function. So now, I think that's very much what I can say. Um, Majority of the organism, why they're so important in the soil is they recycle the nutrient, and it should be there so that they keep the organic matter there. So with that, I think that is all from me. I'm going to end this recording.